Well, I'll go ahead and start us. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Claire Levy. I'm a Boulder County Commissioner, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this virtual open house being hosted by Boulder County Community Planning and Permitting and Public Works on transportation funding for Boulder County. You're being joined, and I'm going to pause in just a minute so that we can do the language statement, but we're being joined this evening by Kathleen Brackey, who is our Deputy Director of Community Planning and Permitting, and she is the head of our Transportation Planning Division, Stacy Proctor, who also is in Community Planning and Permitting, Tim Swope from Public Works, Angel Bond, who heads up our Mobility for All program, Dylan Zamora Silva, who works with Angel, and Rich Hackett, who's the CP&P Public Information Officer. And I'm now going to turn it over to our interpreter this evening to tell us about the Spanish language access.
Perfect. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear my audio okay? Just want to double check.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. So hi, I'm Diego Ponce here today on behalf of the Community Language Cooperative. So thank you for having me today at your meeting. The organizers of this meeting have made a commitment towards language justice. All this means is that we're here to help create a space for people to participate and engage in the language of their heart, which is just simply a language that each feel most comfortable in. So we'll use simultaneous interpretation to help create this space here in Zoom in English and in Spanish. So when I finish saying the statement in English, I'll repeat it in Spanish. At that moment, we'll turn on the interpretation. Once interpretation is turned on, you'll be able to see a globe icon that says interpretation there on the bottom right-hand corner of your computer screen. Please select that globe icon when it pops up, and please select your preferred language. If you happen to be joining today's meeting on your cell phone or your tablet, however, I'm going to ask you to please look for the More button or the three dots button in order to select your preferred language that way. So if you're not fully bilingual, I'll ask you to please select your preferred language so you can utilize the interpretation in case anyone were to speak in the opposite language. But if you are bilingual, then you can just feel free to listen to everyone in their original language. You don't have to select the language channel, and you don't ever have to hear from me, the interpreter. When you select your language, you can always check the original audio so you don't have to be hearing both languages at the same time. As always, I like to remind English speakers just to please pay attention to the speed in which you're speaking, since Spanish is about 20% longer than English. Please don't feel like you need to speak slowly for me, because you don't, but please make sure that you don't pick up your reading speed if you're reading anything off of a computer screen or a sheet of paper. So once again, please ensure that you don't pick up your reading speed. So thank you for that. Buenas tardes a todos y a todas. Mi nombre es Diego Pons. Yo estoy aquí de parte de la Cooperativa Justicia del Lenguaje. Como siempre, gracias por invitarnos hoy a su reunión. Los organizadores de esta reunión se han comprometido a servir la justicia del lenguaje. Lo que eso significa es que queremos crear un espacio para que todas las personas puedan participar e involucrarse en el idioma de su corazón, que es simplemente el idioma en que todas las personas se sientan más cómodas. Hoy vamos a utilizar la interpretación simultánea para poder crear ese espacio aquí en Zoom en inglés y en español. Cuando yo termine de decir esto, vamos a activar la interpretación. Ya cuando la interpretación está activada, usted va a poder observar un icono de un globo terráqueo que dirá interpretación allá abajo a la derecha de su pantalla. Por favor, seleccione ese icono del globo terráqueo cuando aparezca su pantalla y por favor seleccione su idioma preferido. Si usted está asistiendo a esta reunión su celular en su tableta, le voy a pedir que por favor busque la opción que dice More, que quiere decir más, o el botón de 3 puntos para que usted pueda seleccionar su idioma preferido de esa manera. Si usted no es completamente bilingüe, le voy a pedir que por favor seleccione su idioma preferido para que pueda utilizar la interpretación cuando alguien esté hablando en el otro idioma. Pero si usted sí es bilingüe, entonces por favor, siéntase libre hoy de escuchar a todos en su idioma original y jamás tienen que escucharme a mí el intérprete hablar. Y como siempre, cuando usted seleccione su idioma, puede hacer clic en silenciar el audio original para no escuchar ambos idiomas al mismo tiempo. Muchas gracias.
Okay, thank you for that. And so I'm hoping everybody is going to be able to find their way to the language that they're most comfortable in. And it's wonderful that we're able to provide that opportunity for people. So as Boulder County is considering a potential ballot initiative for transportation funding in 2022, we're holding this meeting and others so that to get public input on what your top transportation needs are and your priorities for this funding. And so we really appreciate everybody who's participating in this process this evening with Boulder County to explore that potential extension of our county sales tax. I do want to remind people that this meeting is being recorded so that others can listen to it in the future. Just for a little bit of background on transportation funding in Boulder County, for the past 20 years, the county has had a 1/10 of a cent sales tax. So that's a 1/10 of a penny tax that has been used to fund multimodal transportation improvements throughout Boulder County. That sales tax is going to expire in mid-2024. And so we're considering possibilities for extending that sales tax for an additional 15 years to fund transportation needs into the future. And this funding is needed so that we can continue investments in the countywide multimodal transportation system, and so we can leverage partnerships with local, regional, state, and federal funding opportunities to stretch the limited dollars that we have here in Boulder County. The transportation improvements that we fund with our sales tax revenues support our countywide transportation plan, and they help achieve the county's goals to create a safe, affordable, equitable, and sustainable transportation network for people of all ages and stages of life. So we appreciate you being here. We appreciate your input, your questions, your suggestions this evening, as well as over the remainder of the summer, as this will all come before the commissioners for consideration in July and August, and we'll be making our decision then as to whether to put it on the ballot. So we'll be reminding you of this opportunity throughout the evening, but if you would like to submit comments online, you can go to boco.org/transportation sales tax, and on that page you'll find a link to an online form so you can submit your comments. And of course we'll be taking comments here this evening. So with those remarks, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Kathleen Brackey. As I mentioned before, she is our Deputy Director of Community Planning and Permitting and head of our Transportation Planning Division. So Kathleen, take it away.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Levy. Really appreciate the introduction. And again, echo the thanks and appreciation for everybody being here this evening with us. We can go ahead and switch to the next slide, please. And again, just some additional information there on the interpretation. And go ahead to the next slide, please. So I just want to highlight for everyone the topics we'll be covering this evening. Again, we're here to hear from you, and so we want to keep our portion of the presentation brief, but we want to provide an overview of transportation in Boulder County, all the different types of transportation that we work on together, and then look at our current transportation funding, and then look forward into the future around what are potential opportunities to continue and extend the funding to sustain our transportation investments. And then we'll be opening up the meeting for questions and suggestions from all of you. So with that, let's go ahead into the next slide. And we've got a Mentimeter question to help us get started. And to do the Mentimeter, I'm going to hand it off to Angel Bond, our Mobility for All Program Manager, to lead this part.
Great, thank you, Kathleen. So the Mentimeter will actually be in a couple of slides, but if you want to go ahead and scan it with your phone now to open it up, that'll help make sure that you're ready when we do the question. We're going to have 2 questions tonight to ensure that we get your feedback. We have 2 versions of the Mentimeter question. The English can be accessed on the left-hand side and the Spanish can be accessed on the right-hand side. And the Spanish language will be integrated into the results of the English so that we can present the results all together. That's pretty much it at this point. I'll leave it up here for a couple more seconds. It looks like we have 9 people who have scanned the English version and 0 that have scanned the Spanish version at this point. We'll wait couple more seconds and then we'll move on.
Angel, at some point, we got a request if you could put that QR code in the chat, then people that are on.
Tim, I can't hear you very well. Your microphone sounds like it's muffled.
We got a request to add the Mentimeter code to the chat so people that are on their mobile devices or the.
I still can't hear you. Your microphone.
Angel, he's asking if the link to the Menti can be put into the chat, and I can do that.
I can do that when we're watching the video.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, I'll move on to the next slide.
Great, thank you, Angel. And again, hopefully people are able to join into the Mentimeter while we're on this information. We thought it would be helpful this evening to provide a brief video for you to see all the different types of transportation that we talk about in the presentation later on, but really to get more of a sense of the flavor of all the different modes of transportation, the different areas of the county, and most importantly, the people who are served by our multimodal transportation system across Boulder County. So I'm going to hand it back off to Angel to run the video for us, and then we'll move on with the additional presentation. Angel, let us know if you need help with the video. Or I know you've got a lot of things happening. Oh, here we go.
Work and play. Boulder County is a great place to live, work, and play, with beautiful scenery, countless opportunities for recreation, a strong sense of community, and robust local economies. There's so much to love about Boulder County. Our multimodal transportation network connects our communities and places we want to go. Whether it's taking transit to work, riding a bike on the US 36 bikeway, walking our kids to school, or driving to an appointment, Boulder County's multimodal transportation network helps to get us there.
Going forward, Boulder County's transportation needs are changing, and the transportation system must adapt to meet the community's changing needs. Not everyone has access to all transportation options, and too often our current methods of transportation are too expensive and contribute to climate change and poor air quality. To achieve our community's vision of a safe, sustainable, affordable, and inclusive transportation network, we need to work together to prioritize our transportation investments and plan for a future that serves all of us.
To address the challenges we face now and in the future, Boulder County's Transportation Master Plan provides a blueprint for us to work off of. And as we prepare for the future of getting around our county, we want to continue hearing from you on what you'd like to see the county prioritize.
The TMP includes projects to improve Boulder County roadways, transit, regional trails, and bicycle and pedestrian facilities.
We're working with local and state partners on planning improvements for our regional corridors, such as Colorado 119, US 287, and Colorado 7. Our focus is on the community and giving users multimodal mobility choices, regardless of where they are coming from and going to in Boulder County and beyond.
Vision Zero is our ambitious safety program. We set a goal to eliminate serious injury and fatal traffic crashes in unincorporated Boulder County by 2035. We are dedicated to achieving our goal and providing the public with a transportation system where anyone can travel about the county safely and comfortably, regardless of mode. We are going to achieve our goal by collaborating with stakeholders, engaging with the public, and using a proactive, data-driven approach to eliminate crashes and prioritize safer road design and educational strategies.
Boulder County's Mobility for All and youth transportation programs address the unique needs of our vulnerable and underserved populations. We know that transportation is essential to accessing education, healthcare, recreation, and economic opportunities in Boulder County. By enhancing mobility and transportation options for people of all ages, abilities, and incomes, we foster vibrant, healthy, and equitable communities.
We are enhancing our mountain area connections by creating programs and services that are designed for the unique needs of the county's mountain communities. We are working to continue our strong history of combining local, state, and federal funding to bring the community's transportation vision to life. Boulder County prioritizes investments in multimodal corridors to give people options to use all modes of transportation and support our clean air and climate goals. With your help, all of these programs and projects can come together to create a safe, equitable, affordable, sustainable, and resilient transportation system in Boulder County.
Great, thank you so much for sharing that, Angel. And we were just monitoring the chat. It looked like maybe some folks were having difficulty seeing the video. So we put a link to the video in the chat, so you're more than welcome to look at that anytime. It is available on our Boulder County Transportation Plan website as well. So apologize if there were any troubles being able to see that this evening. I'll go ahead and move back into our slide deck, and again, please let us know in the chat if you're not able to see the information or hear any of the information going forward. So I think what we have coming up next on the next slide is another Mentimeter question around how do you typically travel around Boulder County? And again, Angel, would you like to lead this one?
Yeah, great. So on your Menti, you should see the question, how do you typically get around? If you scan, I put the links in the chat, the mentimeter.com, with the codes that you need for English and Spanish. It looks like there's about 9 people who have taken the English so far. About 18 people who have taken it so far.
And one thing maybe we can clarify, Angel, too, one of the questions we had earlier is when we talk about carpool, it could be carpooling for any type of trips. It could be taking carpooling with someone to work. It could be carpooling with your children to school or taking your children to after school events. So carpooling is meant to be all of the different ways that people could carpool together.
Great, and we have about 25 people, which was the number of people who pressed hearts. So it looks like by and large, most people drive alone, bike, walk, or take transit. So those are the results of that poll question. We'll go ahead and move on.
Great, thanks, Angel. And so when we think about, again, all the different ways that people travel across Boulder County and connect our communities together and connect beyond Boulder County, it really takes a very extensive multimodal transportation system to support people who are, again, driving, biking, walking, taking transit, moving freight and goods and services. The county system really is intended to serve people using all modes all throughout the year. And it's important that we have the resources available to sustain that transportation system as well as to enhance it. And so many of the core services that Boulder County provides are illustrated here in the photos: year-round snow road maintenance and snow removal, the transit services and transit partnerships, And then also roadway improvements to add safety features as well as bikeable shoulders. And then the importance of providing the multi-use paths, the bikeway system is important as well. And the idea is that all fits together to create a network of mobility for people. How we fund those transportation services are really a combination of things today, including vehicle registration fees, the portion of the gas taxes that people pay. And then the topic that we're really here to talk about this evening is the specific Boulder County transportation sales tax, that 0.1% sales tax that's been in place for approximately 20 years. And again, as Commissioner Levy said, it's a tenth of a penny. For me, that's easier to remember visually. It's like just that slice of a penny. And that's primarily the funding that we use for multimodal improvements. So again, roadways and intersections, trails and transit. And let's go ahead and move to the next slide, please. And I think what's helpful to when we look back over the past 20 years of the countywide sales tax, we've been able to accomplish a lot and accomplish a lot of different types of projects throughout the county, from the mountain communities to our communities in East Boulder County and City of Boulder and Longmont and everywhere in between. And again, providing connections that help people move to and from Boulder County as well. So this slide helps illustrate some examples of the types of projects that have been completed over the last 20 years. And we certainly want to be able to continue and build upon that success and that momentum as we move forward into the next horizon. So let's go to the next slide, please. So why we're here this evening is we need to be thinking about our transportation funding with the sales tax beyond 2024. Our current tenth of a penny sales tax expires in mid-2024. So it's very important that we identify additional resources to help continue the investment in the transportation system and have that future of predictable, reliable, sustainable funding over the next 15 years. And the importance of not just why we need to have this funding, but why now? Again, it's that expiration of the current sales tax in mid-2024. Many transportation projects take multiple years to go from planning to design and engineering and construction. So we need that lead time to be able to plan ahead for transportation improvements. And the other critical reason about the timing and why it's so important for us to identify an ongoing transportation funding for this next 15 years is because for the first time in a long time, there are additional dollars available through regional agencies such as the Denver Regional Council of Governments, the state, Colorado Department of Transportation, and then federal transportation funding opportunities through the U.S. Department of Transportation. And all of those new transportation dollars that have become available in this past year because of, at the state level, Senate Bill 260, and at the federal level, the Federal Infrastructure Bill, all of those opportunities require local matching dollars. So we want to make sure that in Boulder County, we have those local dollars that can be used to leverage those larger regional, state, and federal funding sources so that we can use every penny, every tenth of a penny, every dollar wisely and be able to stretch these resources to be able to deliver the transportation system needs going forward. I also think it's important to talk about what happens if we don't do this, or if this were to go forward and not be supported through the voters. This transportation sales tax funding truly is I call it the bread and butter funding for our work in Boulder County. It's where we get our funding for transit services and regional trails, as well as our roadway projects. And without this additional funding, we would really have to pare back what we're doing and primarily focus on maintaining the existing roadway system. So there's definitely consequences if this were to not move forward in some fashion. Let's go ahead to the next slide, please. And so as we were thinking about this and recognizing that, for many of us, 2024 feels like tomorrow when we start looking out ahead and we're trying to plan out our projects and programs and services for transportation. And so when the Boulder County Transportation Plan was recently updated in 2020, we started to think about, okay, how are we going to create a funding stream in the future? But obviously over the last couple of years with the pandemic, we've set a lot of that work aside and we've been focusing on other things. But now, in 2022, we picked that work up again and continued to work with our consultant services, EPS, to help us develop a financial model and a project analysis process to identify what types of resources are needed to be able to deliver different levels of improvement based on our transportation plan, and how could we look at all the different types of scenarios and pros and cons and trade-offs for that. So that's the work we've been doing over the last several months. In addition, back in just last month, the year's flying by, Boulder County also commissioned a formal polling process to check in with the voters and see what is their appetite for transportation funding and looking at different potential levels of funding. And then we're in this ongoing process like tonight, reaching out to the community, reaching out to stakeholders and different people to talk about what are those transportation priorities and how do we look at ways to best invest those precious transportation dollars through Boulder County, and then what would those options look like that we could present to the Boulder County commissioners for their consideration this summer. So this is just kind of, again, it helps to visualize the timeline we've been on and where we are currently, and then what some of the next steps are in the process. Let's go to the next slide, please. We also think it's important to talk about what will the funding accomplish. Sometimes when we talk about funding, we can talk just about dollars and cents, but it's really about what will this funding help create and help provide, again, for people throughout Boulder County. These images are some of the examples of the types of projects, programs, and services that these dollars would be used to implement, again, in accordance with Boulder County's transportation plan. And they include ongoing services like Ride Free Lafayette, which is an on-demand service in the Lafayette community. Regional corridors. This image is from the Colorado 119 planning process to introduce additional ways to travel between Boulder and Longmont and beyond by bus rapid transit, commuter bikeways, and other mobility improvements. And then also our regional trail systems are critically important and highly used throughout Boulder County. We want to be able to continue to connect that system with more communities. And then we want to make sure that we're offering mobility programs for people, again, of all ages and stages of life. We know we have a growing older adult population in Boulder County. We know the numbers from the demographer, that those numbers are going to continue to increase. We have vulnerable populations across Boulder County that we need to find additional ways to serve. And then are certainly a very core important roadway improvements, safety improvements, shoulders throughout the county. So again, just kind of a flavor of the types of investments that we're talking about with these transportation sales tax funds. Let's go to the next slide, please. And as we've been out talking about this information with different groups, we've been getting feedback around, well, what do we mean when we talk about roadways and safety and resilience of our infrastructure? What are some of those examples so that it's more connecting, I guess, with what we see and use on our daily basis? So these images help describe what we mean by intersection improvement projects. When we talk about infrastructure resilience, how do we make sure that our bridges and our culverts are adequately designed and built to handle the impacts that we're seeing from the changing weather patterns from climate change? And again, safety is at the core of everything we do. We want people who use all modes of transportation, driving, walking, biking, everything to get home safely. So these are some examples of the types of projects. Again, the mountain road repair and road shoulders as well. Let's go to the next slide, please. And again, just wanting to share some more specific examples. When we talk about transit service and programs, Boulder County does provide direct transit service for the community, and our transit services are specifically designed and implemented to complement the services offered by RTD and also to complement other services that are provided by local communities or other community partners, such as via mobility services. So we want to be able to deliver transit in a way that meets the needs for each of the communities and can be tailored for what people need today, as well as what may be needed in the future going forward. So all of our programs are and transit is implemented through partnerships, multi-agency partnerships, and we have examples locally as well as regionally. We're starting a new service. I want to give a shout out to Alex Hyde-Wright from our team. He's been working with the town of Lyons and RTD. We're launching a new service between Lyons and Boulder this summer. It'll be called the Lyons Flyer. So that's really exciting to be able to offer those. And then we partnered together on interregional transit service like the Flex, which provides peak hour commute service between Boulder County and Larimer County, all the way from Fort Collins, Loveland, Longmont to Boulder, to help people be able to connect from all of the different communities. So a lot going on in the transit space. Let's go to the next slide, please. And then when we talk about our mobility and access programs, again, Angel Bond and Cami Edson and their teams really deliver an amazing amount of transit support programs, past programs to help make transit more accessible and affordable to more people, outreach and education materials, again, around safety and our Vision Zero goals, and again, other types of opportunities to partner with agencies to help deliver that affordable and equitable and sustainable transportation options for people of all ages. Let's go to the next slide, please. And then when we talk about our regional corridors, again, sometimes we end up with a lot of jargon in transportation, a lot of acronyms and those sorts of things. So this map is from Boulder County's transportation plan, and it highlights these regional connections that are very important to serve people, again, using all modes, whether you're driving, taking transit or biking across Boulder County. How do we develop a regional network of routes that help people get where they want to go and get there safely and efficiently through bus rapid transit, through commuter bikeways, and again, the safety and efficiency improvements at the intersections. So this is really about how do we create that regional network of connections throughout the county, and again, connecting on beyond. Next slide, please. And then, of course, our regional trails and bikeways are so important. Again, they're highly used today across Boulder County, but we have an entire trails master plan, and we're working to expand the network and create those connections, again, for people of all ages to be able to safely walk and bicycle and enjoy Boulder County and be able to connect to all of our different communities. So these are some examples of the types of projects that could be funded going forward with the extension of our transportation sales tax. Let's go to the next slide, please. I mentioned that earlier on in the year, we were looking at a whole variety of options, different potential funding levels, and then different levels of what could be funded through those funding amounts based on our transportation plan. And we started, with our current level, that 1/10 of a penny, and then we looked all the way up to a penny, and then said, okay, well, what could you put in those different size buckets, and what would the options and trade-offs look like? Again, it was an example exploration process to try to test out different potential scenarios. Let's go to the next slide, please. And then, as I mentioned in our overall process, Boulder County has just completed and received some initial polling results from earlier this spring. And based on the polling that was done, and again, this was for asking potential voters what they would think of different funding levels. So the 0.1% like we have today, an extension of that, also tested 0.3 and 0.7. And based on the results back from the polling, it's very clear that the voters really are just supporting that continuity of the current extension, or the extension of the current funding level at that 0.1%, or that tenth of a penny. And it really weren't favorable results for the higher levels of funding based on the polling data. So that's really important information for us, because we can develop all kinds of ideas and options, but at the end of the day, we really need to know what the voters are going to support. And we recognize that we're in hard, uncertain financial times these days, and people have a lot on their plate and a lot of things that financial concerns. And so we want to be mindful of that and respectful of that. And so we're really focusing at this point around how could we best invest that 0.1%? And that's what we're seeking your input on, is how do we prioritize those dollars, again, so we can deliver the services and projects and programs to the community, and then also be able to continue leveraging dollars with other funding sources. So let's go to the next slide, please. So when we look back at how we've invested our Boulder County sales tax funding over the past 20 years or so, these pies kind of help show how that has been allocated in the past. So again, about 60% to roadway projects, 15% regional trails, 15% for transit, and then 10% for regional corridors. So that's kind of our look back, again, holistically over a set of many years. And so then when we look forward, what could some options look like? And again, these are just options to start a conversation, is what could those include, again, in terms of the roadway safety and resiliency projects, continuing the 15% for regional trails and bikeways, continuing 15% for transit, and then adding, again, this is a proposed approach, 5% for the mobility programs and services, and then continuing that 10% level of investment on the regional corridor. So again, just meant as a starting point for the conversation, and very interested in what your thoughts are around this evening. Let's go to the next slide, please. So the other analysis that we've been doing and just completed very recently, so these are draft preliminary results as of today. As part of our sustainability goals for Boulder County, both for transportation as well as for air quality and our climate action plan, we thought it's important that we analyze the set of projects from the transportation plan to identify what is the potential for each of those types of projects to reduce vehicle miles traveled, improve our air quality, as well as reduce greenhouse gas emissions to help achieve our climate goals. So this is, again, just meant to be illustrative. For me, it's mostly helpful from a comparative standpoint. When we look at our roadway projects and trails, the pedestrian projects are really more of our bicycle and pedestrian projects, like multi-use paths. And then we have our infrastructure, like bridges type projects, and then different types of transit. So trying to get an understanding of, how can we invest each dollar in a way that contributes to all of the different goals, our sustainability goals and our safety, affordability, and equity goals as well. So this is, again, just one piece of information to help inform those future conversations. Next slide, please. So we have another Mentimeter question, so I'm going to turn it over to Angel to facilitate this for us.
Great, thank you. So using the same code that you had before, it should still be up on your phone. You're going to take the next question, and the next question really is about, if you had $100, how would you spend the $100 on these programs? So I am going to go ahead and open up that question at this point, and you should be able to vote on, you can vote in $10 increments. Okay, so it looks like we've had about 5 people vote so far. I will put in the chat again the links for the polls. To take the English poll, you can click on the link that I'm going to put in now. And then for the Spanish poll, you can click on the next one. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and share the results. It looks like we've had about 20 people take it, which we've had 25 at our highest. I'll go ahead and show the results. So it looks like at this point, transit services is about 24%, roadway safety resilience is about 20%, regional corridors around 19%, regional trails and bikeways 19%, and mobility and access programs 17%. Okay. Kathleen, I don't know if you want to respond to those.
Oh, sure. Thanks for sharing those, Angel. I think it's really helpful just to see kind of how, again, yeah, how those kind of shake out and what the perspectives are about that. And really the most important part about the Mentimeter part is just to help start the dialogue and the conversation. And I see some of the questions coming in the chat, so thank you for starting to populate the questions for us. Can we go ahead to the next slide, please?
Yeah, and I just want to remind everybody that if you can't participate in the Menti, you can always put your answer in the chat as well.
So before we open it up to questions, again, I just want to provide a reminder of where we are in the process and the next steps. So we're continuing to gather input and feedback from the community through this month, and then into July, and then over the summer. The proposed approach for a potential transportation sales tax would go to the Boulder County Commissioners for their consideration. And so there's some specific milestones that we're working toward there that are part of that ballot preparation process. And then if it were to be decided to move forward, then this would be an item on the November 2022 election. Let's go to the next slide, please. So this is the part of the evening that we look forward to. It's your questions and your comments and suggestions. So please let us know. Again, there's the Q&A function there, and there's a link to our website as well on Boulder County. In addition to more information, there's a comment form there. So if you think of other things you'd like to suggest, either tonight or another night, or share with your neighbor, please feel free to do that. The more comments, the more input, the better. So we'll turn it over to start fielding the Q&A.
Great, thanks Kathleen. We have gotten a few questions. There's a couple we answered in writing, so folks can look at the answered questions there in writing. But I don't know if Tim, you wanted to answer this first question about what does road safety and resilience mean? And maybe Angel, you can go back to that slide. And we can, do you want to question, Tim?
Yeah, first, hopefully I fixed my microphone. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, the safety and resiliency category is basically Boulder County's version of road projects. So our what we call road widening, which is really paving the shoulders of our county arterial roads. We have started to look more carefully at flood resiliency after the 2013 flood, specifically working with our partners to replace some of their larger bridges and just problematic areas where floods could really impair our ability to move around during these disaster events. And then also with the Vision Zero policies that we have, the intersection safety has become a huge priority. And I should say that we do a lot of intersection safety improvements just with our basic road and bridge funding. I mean, that is a high priority. It always has been. So, but we have some large projects like 61st and Valmont right outside of the city of Boulder, and some of the CDOT highways that intersect Boulder County roads where we want to partner with CDOT to really just try to protect the traveling public, both in all vehicles and buses and bikes, and also probably equally importantly on foot. And then we do have some more typical road projects. Eldora Ski Road and some of our mountain roads are in really bad shape. We pay for all of our maintenance just out of our general road and bridge funds, but there are some challenges we have up there that are large in scope, more than we can handle with our regular funding.
Great, thanks, Tim. And I also wanted to just mention that we have a few more questions coming in, but if you would prefer to ask your question without typing it in, feel free to raise your hand and we can unmute you to ask a question that way or make a comment. But in the next question, I guess, was about the background for the poll participants. Kathleen, did you want to answer that, or Commissioner Levy?
Either way, Commissioner Levy, would you like to take that one, or I can help you, whichever you're.
I can take that. Just in very general terms, wanting to know. I guess the question is what kind of background information was given in the poll, and because we were testing a lot of different proposals, and we just wanted a general community response. It was very brief. It just listed in broad terms the kinds of improvements. That it would be multimodal, that there would be trail connections. I think there were maybe some references to the transportation master plan, but not the kind of detail that the slide has and that Kathleen's been able to provide in this presentation.
Did you want to add anything to that, Kathleen?
No, I thought that was great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, and then the next question was about fare free transit and if that was considered in the different scenarios. Kathleen, did you want to answer that?
Sure. So as part of the exploration of, again, that sort of wide bookend of options or potential scenarios of funding different aspects of Boulder County Transportation Plan at the different funding levels. That slide, we did look at scenarios that could include funding for fare-free transit. For example, a patterning off of what the city of Longmont does today, where the city of Longmont pays RTD so that the 300 series routes in Longmont are free for the passengers to ride. So we did identify some potential funding levels for that could be used for fare-free local or regional service, but really those would be more applicable in a scenario with a higher level of funding. So with this focus now on the extension of the 10th of a penny, that really wouldn't generate enough resources there to be able to incorporate that in the mix at this time. But hopefully that's something that could be considered as a possibility in the future.
Thanks, Kathleen. And I see I think Jenny Bucks raised her hand, so I'm going to attempt to allow you to talk right now. Wait. Okay. Jenny, can you speak? Can we hear you?
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep, that worked, yep.
Yeah, so I live at Kestrel, and I take the Lafayette bus all the time to my appointments at Kaiser. And I was informed that that's a pilot program and there's a chance it may go away. And that concerned me. So anybody want to take that up?
Angel, did you want to answer that question?
Yeah, I can answer that question. Currently, we're funding the Ride-Free Lafayette service with some DRCOG Human Services Transportation dollars and then our local sales tax. So currently it's about a 50-50 split. We are slowly weaning off of the DRCOG funds. And if this extension goes through, I would suspect that we would be able to continue it in some form, but we're still trying to figure out the split of how we would split up the funds if it does get extended. So we're hoping that we can continue it using a mixture of grant dollars and local dollars like we're doing now, but it is currently funded using DRCOG grants.
Great, thanks.
Yep. Well, actually, and Stacy, if I can piggyback on Angel's comment too, the other opportunity we're looking at in that area is how could we, again, through seeking grant funds using these dollars as local match, be able to pursue funding through the Denver Regional Council of Governments to extend or expand the on-demand service that we have with Ride-Free Lafayette today, but be able to offer it throughout East Boulder County. So that you could ride not only within Lafayette, but if you had appointments that were in Louisville or Superior or Erie, you'd be able to connect in those areas as well. So we're currently in the process of applying for DRCOG funding, hopefully being able to not only sustain the service we have today, but grow it into the future. But again, these local sales tax dollars are a critical piece of that puzzle to provide local matching funds.
Great, thanks, Kathleen. And then the next question was, are regional bikeways considered in the corridor safety improvements or the regional path bikeway category? Did you want to answer that, Kathleen?
Sure, yeah, and I think it's a great question because what it helps to illustrate is so many of the projects that are on our transportation plan are, they have what I call co-benefits. So a project, I'll use the Colorado 119 commuter bikeway that we're in the process of planning and going after funding for implementation. That's an example of a component of a project that, yes, it has funding from our regional trails and bikeway investment, but it also has funding from transit and from roadways. And so when we look at this, I kind of visualize more of a matrix where we have a project that might have a primary category, like roadways in that particular case, but it has additional benefits in the categories for regional trails and bikeways. And are there ways to create a funding package that brings in money from all of those different parts of the pie, so to speak? So it's not hard lines in between each slice of the pie, but it's they can help balance and co-fund multimodal projects together. I don't know if that was helpful or not, but that's an example. And then I think the question specifically called out State Highway 119, State Highway 93, State Highway 7, and State Highway 36. And yes, those are all very critical regional corridors that are on Boulder County's transportation plan. And we know that they are in desperate need of bicycle safety improvements and separated areas for bicycles to ride away from the higher speed traffic there. So we would look to find ways to co-fund those improvements, again, not only with Boulder County funds, but also those are great candidate projects for us to be able to leverage these dollars and go after funding from DRCOG, Colorado Department of Transportation, as well as federal infrastructure funds as well.
Great, thank you, Kathleen. And I see someone else has their hand up. Karen W. I'm gonna unmute. And ask your question.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Great. I've got two questions. One is earlier on, you'd mentioned the sources for transportation funding, which I believe is the vehicle registration fees, gas tax, and sales tax. I'm wondering if somebody could maybe just give an outline of I'm curious, the percentage that comes from each of those sources of funding. So for instance, the sales tax, how does that rank compared to those other two sources of funding? And it's fine if you want to get back to me on that. I don't know if that's something you have at your fingertips. And then my secondary question is there any way to frame the funding issue, the ballot issue, as essentially, I guess what I'm phrasing as a ranking choice of asking what is the maximum people would be willing to pay. So say, for instance, somebody's willing to pay, the mid-range, and 25% of people want to do that, but just see where I'm going with that, so that we could use that then to select. So it's kind of more of a ranking choice. So questions about that?
Okay, Kathleen or Tim, did you want to answer the first question?
Yeah, I can start with that, and Tim, if you want to add on, that would be great. And I think that's a really important question, Karen, about what does the whole pie look like for transportation in Boulder County. From the particular piece of the transportation sales tax, it's about a quarter, or approximately a quarter, about 23% of our overall funding for transportation. And then, as you said, the other sources of funding include the gas tax, vehicle registration fees, and other sources of funding, highway user tax fund, all of those that come in to Boulder County that get used for the overall transportation system support, very important ongoing core operations and maintenance of the existing system. So there's a lot of important work that is done with the additional dollars. The specific transportation sales tax we're talking about this evening is that, again, about a quarter of that. And I don't know, Tim, if you want to add on anything to that.
Well, I think just add the reminder that, quite a significant portion of the money that Boulder County spends on transportation comes from specific grants or projects or disaster funding. The majority of money that we receive in taxes is spent on maintaining our roads, really running our snow plows. Boulder County has hundreds of miles of gravel roads that all need to be graded, plowed, maintained in the mountains. And so the general taxes that you pay, property taxes, specific ownership tax, those all go primarily just to running our plows and keeping the gravel roads graded. And then there's a huge amount of, so really what we're talking about with the sales tax is the improvements, which is not just fixing something that's broken, but actually creating a new thing or improving a new thing, instead of just repaving the road, widening the road. And yeah, that is a more limited funding stream, but a surprising amount of it comes from outside funding sources, federal and others.
Great, thanks, Tim. And I don't know if somebody, maybe Commissioner Levy, if you can answer that, the ranked voting kind of question, if you know the answer to that.
I wish I did. I think it's a great idea, and I wish we could do something like that, because I think the questioner, Karen, is probably thinking, well, if we could get more than that extension of the existing tax, let's go for it. And I like that spirit, but I don't think Tabor, that the constitutional amendment that passed in the early 90s specifies exact ways you have to put tax increases on the ballot. And so I'm sure that there are some constraints there, but I think, we'll consider that and other ways of doing this very carefully to make sure that we're not selling ourselves short if the voters are inclined to be more generous than the poll results suggested.
Great, thank you. Next question was someone asking about the IIJA, the Infrastructure and Jobs Act, and other federal funding, advising, and implementation work. So Kathleen, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about kind of what we're doing on the leveraging funding front and those federal sources.
Sure. And again, this is one of the new opportunities in transportation, the federal Infrastructure and Jobs Act. It's also referred to as the Infrastructure Bill, Infrastructure Law. It's the first time in decades that we've had additional funding for transportation across the country. And through that federal funding, there are there's additional funding for existing programs, existing grants, as well as the creation of many new funding opportunities. So we work with our agency partners from all across Boulder County and the Denver Regional Council of Governments. We also work with CDOT, and they have a lot of resources and connections with the federal funding as well. And then I think many of our agencies we're actively learning about these new programs that are coming out. There's a new safety initiative that's been released that we're very keenly interested in. There's a lot of other types of opportunities coming forward to work on. And so we keep our ear to the ground on that. We work closely with a coalition of communities in the Northwest part of the metro area called the Northwest Mayors and Commissioners Coalition. And through that group, we have access to federal resources on what are these opportunities for funding, when are they coming about, how do we anticipate that, and then how do we keep our high priority projects in front of them. So we meet frequently on, here's our core projects. Again, some of the ones we've mentioned tonight, like the Colorado 119 corridor, Colorado 7 between Boulder out to I-25 and beyond, US 287. There's a whole set of very high priority regional projects that we continue to bring forward. We've also been working with agency partners on new potential funding that's been made available on the federal front for Amtrak and potential rail related initiatives. And Commissioner Levy serves on the Colorado Front Range Passenger Rail District. So we try to do everything we can to stay in touch with what those opportunities are and how can we take advantage of those. And again, work together with our agency partners locally, regionally, at the state and federal level to go after those dollars and bring them back to our communities.
Great, thanks, Kathleen. The next question was about a missing shoulder from the intersection of 36 to Highway 66, going west on Highway 66 for about half a mile toward Lyons. Do you want to talk about that? I don't know, Tim or Kathleen, if one of you want to take that.
Yeah, again, I can start, and Tim, feel free to join in. The Colorado 36 corridor between Boulder and Lyons is a very important corridor for, again, connections and for safety. So a lot of the improvements that we are going after grant funding for, again, in collaboration with other agencies and with the town of Lyons and CDOT, include the 36 corridor, as well as the Highway 66 corridor. There is, and what I wanted to mention is there's a relatively new corridor plan for Highway 66 that connects from Lyons all the way out to I-25 and beyond. And through that planning process has identified some specific safety related improvements. And again, now the work is how do we work together to go after grant funding to make those improvements. Tim, do you want to add on to that?
Well, Devin, I think your specific question is about a stretch of state highway that I think we've all been aware of for quite a while. We've worked with CDOT and the town of Lyons on just improving overall safety, multimodal safety for that corridor. The town is looking at a trail connection that would connect down to 36 along Highway 66. And we've continued to work with CDOT or discuss with CDOT about improving that little stretch for cyclists. It's a tough corridor with a lot of constraints, but and we are certainly not the lead agency on that, but we're certainly at the table with CDOT and the town to address that. It's on everyone's radar, I would say.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add just kind of generally about the regional corridors when it comes to partnering with other agencies, that we may not be the one who is responsible for the road or the corridor. We are really working to partner with CDOT and find ways to bring some local dollars, but partner with them to make projects happen. And so Highway 66 is a good example of that. Next was A question that what's the highest percentage needed to maximize federal match in transportation funding? Kathleen, do you want to talk about local match?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And again, I mentioned that especially the new federal infrastructure bill funding, it's highly competitive. And so typically the local match requirement on most projects for federal funding is 20% local and 80% federal. That's the normal approximate matching ratio. However, as we get into more and more larger scale projects or more competitive federal funding opportunities, sometimes the funding match needs to go up to 30% or 40%. So again, an example from this past spring, we're working together with Boulder County and CDOT and the cities of Longmont and Boulder to apply for federal funding for the Colorado 119 corridor project, and that we know we needed to create an overmatch for the project in order to get extra points. And that's a similar approach with some of the DRCOG regional funding. There's the base level of match that might be 20%, but you get additional points if you overmatch the funds. So we tailor our matching package to be as competitive as we can for those different sources based on what's required and what we think would be necessary to compete well for those dollars. Again, the more local money we can bring to the table, generally the more advantageous that helps the project be from a competitive standpoint.
And then Kathleen, just along the same vein, someone's asking if if we don't have the sales tax, then do we not have those local matching dollars?
Right, that's my worry. I'll just be candid. That's my worry, is that that's the funding we use to partner together to go after these dollars. And again, we try and share in the local match with other agencies as well. So we try to stretch it as far as we can. I'll give an example from earlier today. We're in the process of applying for DRCOG Transportation Improvement Program funding in this next coming round. And we've developed a set of grant applications for a variety of projects, capital projects, as well as programs and services. And if we were successful, we would be able to take approximately $420,000 from Boulder County funds and leverage it for almost $9 million in total package of funding. So it gives you a sense of how important those local dollars are for match. So, but again, we know there's a lot of different needs. And so we have to also balance what can we do locally with our local dollars, as well as what slice is important to be used for leverage. We can't use it all for leverage. So we have to be figuring out what that balance is. Hopefully that is helpful.
Yeah, thanks, Kathleen. And then Commissioner Levy, hopefully you can answer this next question about the poll results and if those results are available for people to look at. You're muted.
I'm muted. Thank you. I'm sorry. You're pitching to me the question about poll results available online, etc. Those we will make those poll results available once the commissioners have had a full presentation from the polling firm on those results. We want to make sure that we fully understand them and have gone through all of the questions in a lot of detail and understand the context and the recommendation from the polling firm. And we'll be hearing that, I believe, sometime in early July. I don't know the exact date. And then after we've had that presentation, we'll be making those results public. And that presentation will be public as well.
Do you have any sense on the timing of that?
I would have to look and see if it's even been scheduled on my calendar. And I'll do that while we're talking. I'll open up my calendar.
Yeah, thank you. Great. Okay, I think we've answered the questions that have been submitted so far. Are there any other questions that people want to submit. Oh wait, I got another one. Someone just asked, is there a difference between city residents and county residents? Is your question about what the tax would be on that? Oh, so response to the survey. Yeah, so I think Commissioner Levy, do you want to answer that? That there's
Okay,
full
we're
data
gonna
on that, but I don't know if you want to share any more.
I was trying to look at my calendar.
Yeah, so the question was,
but a difference between city residents and county residents?
In terms of their response to the survey.
Oh, the results are broken out, yes. I can't cite from memory now what the difference is, but they are broken out. And so when we're able to make that public, you'll be able to see that. Generally, I can say that there was very strong support within the city of Boulder for the proposal for increasing, but it was pretty strong throughout the county.
Thanks. Any other questions?
Oh, and actually, it looks like so Jana Peterson, the county administrator, is with us this evening, and she has informed me that the presentation on the polling results is tentatively scheduled for June 21st. So that's tentative.
Great, thank you. And then Tiffany commented that the county residents might have paving concerns, and that might have influenced their polling results there. So that comment. Yes, are there any other comments or questions? And if not, I'll turn it back over to you, Kathleen.
I was going to just jump in on that last comment. Tiffany Myers, county residents have paving issues in their communities, and this has been a long-standing issue in Boulder County. The Board of County Commissioners changed the policy in 1996 about maintenance of subdivision roads, and adopted a policy that the county would maintain community level roads. So think of more collector type roads that serve the community versus roads that are just purely local and only serve the people that live on those roads, that those would be the responsibility of residents of the subdivisions. And we were hoping that within these various levels of funding, that we would be able to get a funding level high enough so that Boulder County could start working on this backlog of maintenance that has built up over the years. And unfortunately, there was not support at a funding level that would have allowed us to do that. So we're still going to be talking with community members about how to address this issue.
Great, thanks, Commissioner Levy. Kathleen, did you have any other things you wanted to comment on?
Yeah, I could take a step. A couple more questions have come in. One was around timing, and Karen was asking if to get on the ballot this fall, when would the final decision need to be made? Our understanding is there would be a series of steps that would take place this summer between now and August in order to place something on the ballot formally. So that's the time frame that we're working on, and through that process there will be additional opportunities for people to provide comments, and there'll be public meetings around that. I also see the comment about, and I really appreciate it, that candidly that there's a mistrust that the funding will go where it's supposed to go. And I really appreciate you putting that in there, because it's so important for us to make sure that these dollars are going to the projects that they are intended, the projects, programs, and services. And I think one of the things that Boulder County has done very well these past 20 years, and my hat's off to Tim and others who've been with the county for all of these years, we provide very detailed accounting of all of the funds, the projects that they go toward, the projects that are on deck to move forward. We provide an annual update to the consortium of cities each year to check in so that there is accountability for how these funds are used and transparency in terms of that process. Going forward, we'd like to be able to enhance that and create more of a public-facing dashboard so that we could be able to show the whole public, everyone, how these dollars are coming in and the types of investments that are being made, so that we are honoring and respecting these funds that are public dollars. We're simply stewards of the public funds, and we want to make sure that they're going to the purposes and uses that are consistent and aligned with the county's transportation plan and the community's expectations, today and tomorrow and into the future. So that accountability piece is very important to us as well, and that we want to honor that. So thank you for asking that question.
Great, thanks, Kathleen. Okay, and I think Commissioner Levy, you were gonna wrap things up for us tonight.
Yep, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do it by just thanking everybody for coming and asking really great questions and putting your thoughts in the chat and in the Q&A. And I do want to just remind people of the link for submitting comments online. If you think of something later on that you'd like us to know, or just have a comment in general, the link is in the chat, but I'll just say it out loud. It's boco.org/transportation sales tax, and that will take you to the page where you'll find the link to the form where you can submit your comments. And so thank you again. And I think we'll go ahead and sign off, and just appreciate staff's really great work to set this up and provide all the background for this. So, we'll be ending the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Levy. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Night.